Lloyd says that the advisor is a special profession that he created. The girl says, laughing. Lloyd explains that, unlike an appraiser who only gives assessments, he makes recommendations and teaches based on the assessment results. The girl says she knew it. He says he doesn't have an ounce of blacksmithing talent. L. Loyal asks the girl for a few words, and she's surprised and asks if he's talking to her. L. Loyal explains that he's someone who sees talent in others and finds the best solution to help them develop. He asks if she likes the water balloon, adding that it's his job as an advisor. Kairos, the master of the Iskatal Adventurers Guild, reports that they have most of the people they've already assigned, and that Lloyd's assessment is no longer needed in the guild. He explains that non-combatants who can't meet the quota for collecting materials from demons are not needed. Lloyd says he doesn't understand what he's talking about. Lloyd reports that with his skills, their guild has become the best in the kingdom. Lloyd says that he, the leader, Kairos tells Alan to come in. Kairos, a Class B adventurer, enters. Kairos says that starting today, he's giving Alan a new position. Alan says he will do his best to repay the kindness, explaining that it was Kairos who discovered his hidden talent and helped him develop it. L. Loyal says he doesn't understand what's going on. L. Loyal explains that getting rid of him is a done deal and says he didn't want to spread the word about his true skills. Lloyd explains that he was probably mistaken in expecting this to develop his other skills and asks why he doesn't just leave. The man asks Lloyd if he'd mind if Alan took his place and says he thought Lloyd would be grateful for how much they'd put up with him. Lloyd reveals that he has found, advised, and helped develop the talents of countless others, thinking it was his job to help people since he couldn't fight himself, but it was all in vain, and asks what the right thing to do is. L. Loyal reports that this is how he left the guild, or rather, was expelled. He explains that he's been working part-time as an appraiser at an appraisal office for a week now. Lloyd gave an assessment to all people working part-time on this. The guy reads his assessment and says that nothing has changed since then. L. Loyal suggests that perhaps he should change his profession, for example, to a heavyweight warrior. The man is indignant, asking what the point is, since he's a lightly armored warrior. L. Loyal says he knew it. L. Loyal says he should be using the appraisal skill, but his real skill is called Mind's Eye. He explains that he gained this ability by mastering appraisal. L. Loyal says that with this skill, he can detect things that appraisal can't see, even a person's hidden qualities. He says the guy is wasting his time on things like that. Lloyd reports that dexterity will not improve further, while patience and hand strength have the potential to grow to higher levels. He explains that, as far as he knows, he is the only one with the Mind's Eye, and he conceals this to avoid potential danger and will definitely not speak of it openly. He says that even he doesn't know how to explain it, and that he can't blame his interlocutor for not believing his advice. L. Loyal says he needs to get ready for work. L. Loyal calls the next man in line. L. Loyal says hey and invites him in. Ellis says she's here today on Master Moyd's business and introduces herself as a mage. He asks if she's here on business. Ellis asks for her opinion first, explaining that she's the last one there and won't disturb anyone. He agrees. He reveals the Mind's Eye ability. Lloyd says A. He says that, in his opinion, the value of the hero's magical abilities is underestimated, and this especially concerns magical power and leadership. The girl asks what's going on, and Lloyd asks to see everything again. He explains that he's been using the Mind's Eye too much lately, so maybe there's a glitch. The girl exclaims, "Mind's Eye." He reports that nothing has changed. Lloyd thinks this girl has a unique quality that most people ignore, and he recalls that he's already seen a water balloon used as a unique quality. The girl tells Mr. Lloyd that she needs to talk to him about something. The woman says that if it weren't for Master Lloyd, she wouldn't be alive. She calls Lloyd the same Master Lloyd and the advisor who showed her the way. He says he was mistaken for someone else, that he's simply an expert, and asks not to address him with honorifics as he's younger. The girl says that they met 3 years ago in One-Eye's workshop. The girl hoped he'd help her remember by expressing his opinion, but he reminds her it was 3 years ago and asks her to say just one word. He explains that the embodiment of the sun is connected to the blacksmith's guild, the workshop of the One-Eye, which is why he took his people there. The girl says she still clearly remembers the scene from that time. Lloyd remains silent. He says later, then he expresses surprise. Lloyd explains that Ellis was working in the one-eyed man's workshop, and upon seeing her in such a state, he couldn't remain silent and used his mind's eye. Lloyd reveals that she had no talent at all. He explains that the girl has a talent for water ballooning and suggests that she try to master it. He asks her if she likes water balloons and tells her that he gave her some advice. Lloyd explains that his advice caused her to act rashly, and he blames himself for her having to change careers, while saying that he is truly sorry. Lloyd asks her to forgive him. The girl says she should bow and is surprised. She then thanks Lloyd for pointing out her talent and expresses joy at being able to express her gratitude in person. He says no and is surprised. Lloyd's thoughts reveal that the girl originally wanted to become a blacksmith. Lloyd reports that his eyes showed a lack of ambition, although this could have been primary depression. Lloyd explains that he was too hasty in changing her life. The girl asks if Master Lloyd is okay and offers to form a guild with her. Master Lloyd says he's considering looking for work as an advisor again after his temporary position ends. The girl approaches the master and he agrees. The girl announces that they will create a new guild from scratch. Lloyd explains that he is not a fighting type, as he has been casting spells for several years, and it is not his style. The girl says that she would like him to see her grow beyond herself. The woman says she's been practicing water ball magic for 3 years now. He asks if that's true and wonders if they fight. The woman says she's grown since he advised her. He explains that it's entirely his fault she can only use elementary magic. Lloyd says it's clear. He says that he has a training ground at home and he can show it there. El Loyal says he didn't understand when the girl mentioned the training ground. The girl says she's glad to welcome El Loyal home and asks how he's doing. The girl explains that this is Mr. Lloyd, and he came to them today to check the results of her training, and the other girl says this. El Loyal says she's as good as new, even though she trains every day, and that seems to be true. The girl says she's looking forward to it. El Loyal explains that no matter how much Ellis has grown, if she can only use the water balloon, then realistically, eventually, the girl turns to Lloyd and says she wants him to focus on those who, like her, were unlucky. He asks if he's unlucky. The girl begins to speak, addressing Master Lloyd. The girl explains that she was trained in fencing from an early age, and that her parents were B-rank adventurers and renowned swordsmen. She explains that her parents were unable to reach A rank and wanted her, their only daughter, to fulfill this long-held dream. Lloyd is silent. The girl says that her parents' expectations overwhelmed her, and she ran away to become a blacksmith. He reports that Master Lloyd gave her some advice. The girl explains that, in the end, she was just working in vain, and then everything happened. She says that then she realized that she truly loved magic and recalls how, as a child, she first released a water ball and how happy they were. The girl explains that she's been training for a long time with nothing but the water balloon, which she loves so much, and that Lloyd's words saved her. She says it's time to show off her training. Lloyd is surprised and asks why no chanting. The girl exclaims that she's been waiting for this for a long time. The sound of impact accompanies the destruction of the wall, and he says it's bam and expresses surprise. Lloyd asks Ellis how much she practiced. Ellis says she started out shooting a little and then practiced every day until sunset whenever she had time, as she was advised to do. The girl reports that she can now fire 200 shots every day without potions. He says 200 is too many, and then there shouldn't be a trace left of this platform. He asks if the girl can fire another 200 times and is surprised that a unique quality can progress so much. The girl says that she really likes the Water King and confirms this with the word yes. Lloyd says it's clear. The girl says that even with just one quality, if you master it, you can reach that level. He reports that when he was in the incarnation of the sun, he recruited only those who had the potential to become universalists, but thought he was looking for uncut gems. But in reality, he only found those who were already gems. Lloyd reveals that, now that he's an advisor, he wants to find gems in the true sense of the word and cut them himself. Lloyd tells Ellis that she said she wants him to save others, to which Ellis replies, yes. He says that then they will gather everyone and create the best guild. The text announces that the Great Awakening of Dormant Talents is about to begin. The Adventurers Association says it's a dream come true to be here with Master Lloyd. Lloyd thanks the girl for agreeing to form a guild with him and asks her to save her gratitude for when they actually do it. The girl says she knows there are some obstacles to this and asks what they are. Lloyd explains that they need approval from the Adventurers Association chairman. He says that if he decides that they have no future, they will give up on the idea right then and there. The woman says she'd like to start a new guild. Lloyd says they won't meet him until they find out, and the girl explains they've already come this far. Lloyd suggests they go, and the girl agrees. The woman explains that to create it, you need to be an A-class adventurer or higher, and doesn't think it's possible. The man asks, what about that? The woman says that even if there is a map, and the person isn't an A-class adventurer, then the man apologizes for the S-class. The woman asks to wait a minute. El Loyal and the girl stand nearby. The man and girl address the woman. Lloyd says it's best not to judge everyone by appearances, calling himself a true S-class adventurer. The girl explains that she's not as strong as other adventurers of the same level. The woman informs him that the chairman is expecting Lloyd if he plans to found a guild. Lloyd explains that he only belongs to the class due to his achievements as an advisor and therefore doesn't want to make it public. The woman asks how Lloyd even knew about this. August knocks on the door and asks to come in. Ellis apologizes and says her name is Ellis. Ellis says she heard about August wanting to start a new guild with 2 members and confirms this. Lloyd says he hasn't seen August in a while. The girl asks Lloyd what Master Lloyd is doing here. Lloyd asks why he's so surprised. Master Lloyd explains that he was told an S-class person had arrived. The girl says she didn't expect to see Lloyd, and he jokes that he hasn't changed and is still the same little kitty despite his appearance. The man asks Lloyd if he knows the chairman, and he replies that yes, he was a former student of his. The man remarks that the chairman is already past his prime. Lloyd says he is 20 years old and taught him at 15. The girl says he was the chairman at 15. Lloyd says he heard about the decision to create his own guild and asks why Master Lloyd is here if he should be at the sun's embodiment. The man replies with a question. Lloyd says that apparently he hasn't been informed yet that he was exiled. The man asks if this is Kairos' doing. Lloyd explains that they were told they wouldn't need him, as they'd already found all the people they needed. The man addresses Lloyd as Master Moyd. He says he's touched, that August is angry because of him. August explains that perhaps the incarnation of the sun should be destroyed with the full authority of the Adventurers Association. The man says that Master Moya is serious, and that the future of their guild has always been tied to the name of August. The girl says that there is no need for the association to destroy the embodiment of the sun, and the man asks what she means by no need. Lloyd asks if they've forgotten why they're here. The man says yes indeed, the guild then. He explains that the guild, of which Master Moyd is the guildmaster, will allow them to defeat the incarnation of the sun in no time, but also says that they won't. Lloyd says that if he learns of the guild's creation, he will do everything in his power to destroy it. The girl asks him to wait and says she is well aware of Lloyd's abilities, and he explains that Kairos does not spare those who threaten his position, and if he tries to, El Loyal says she wants the man to think about his decision after seeing the water ball. The woman says she's asking if they want their future to depend on it. The man asks to wait a minute, and El Loyal tells him not to worry, that he'll succeed. He informs Ellis that he can only use a water balloon. The man apologizes and says he doesn't think anything will change, even if they show him something like that. The guy says everything is fine and is confident the man will change his mind. The girl says she can't believe she's about to show the chairman what she's capable of and admits she's very nervous. The man asks if the girl is sure she's okay, and the guy asks the man if he knows what it sounds like. Lloyd says to become a ball under the blessing of water and shower the enemy with water. The man explains that without the blessing, the magic won't manifest. Another man says it's obvious and asks if that's a stupid question. He says we need to try what we talked about yesterday. Then he says it's time to start. The girl says she'll try to hit the target. The man explains that to damage it, you'd have to be Class A or higher. Lloyd says Master Lloyd can't handle the golden target, and the man advises her to just think about hitting it. The girl shouts forward. The girl says to go forward and makes a spell sound. The man thinks she's already run out of magic and asks why she hasn't said the spell. Lloyd tells August to look up. August says that Master Moyd has been gone too long. He says it's not bad. The man says the golden target. The girl reports that she fired at full speed at a target that can barely be damaged even by advanced magic, and is surprised by the large hole. Lloyd says it even seemed like the ball disappeared, and that it worked out well. The man explains that yesterday he told her to shoot at high speed, but it didn't. The girl says she is surprised and still doesn't understand everything, and asks why he is playing this circus, because he is clearly an S-class. He touches the man's shoulder and explains something. El Loyal explains that if Ellis learns of her abilities, it will hinder her development, and he doesn't want her to limit herself. He's decided to keep her class a secret for now. The man asks how exactly El Loyal mentors her and what advice she gives. El Loyal explains. The girl explains that she's been training every day for 3 years, and this is the result of her hard work. He says it's quite reasonable. The man says that's what gives words their weight and that he sees through people and unlocks their inner strength. Lloyd says that, as always, he wants to give advice. He asks him for the 30th time. The man says that it is him again. L.O. Loyal asks August why he's so obsessed with him, a simple worker from the Adventurers Association, calling it nonsense, and August explains that he simply sees through L.O. Loyal's talent. L.O. Loyal suggests that August strive for greater things, like becoming the president of the association. He says he doesn't have even a hint of talent, and it's impossible. The man says no, in a few years he could become president of the Adventurers Association. L. Loyal says he just needs to use his skill and observe people. The man asks what he should do and says that if he continues like this, he'll have no choice but to leave. The man thanks El Loyal for listening and agrees. The man explains. He says he's glad they understood him, but he doesn't want his power to become public knowledge. The girl says that if the incarnation of the sun or any other guild came after them now, they would be defeated in an instant, and believes she's just an ordinary adventurer. Augustus says that they are already finished. The girl asks about it, and Lloyd thanks and says that it means Augustus allows them to create a guild. The man is convinced they will create the most incredible guild imaginable and offers to support them in such a serious step. The man says it's nothing, and the girl thanks him. The guy is surprised and asks if it's true. El Loyal announces that they want to found a guild for disadvantaged and marginalized children. The man says it's serious. El Loyal explains that it's not a counselor's job to find only the best of the best, and that's precisely what he's learned from this whole situation. He says he wants to gather disadvantaged children and polish them like uncut diamonds, and asks that such people be sent to him. The man says he understands. El Loyal explains to Ellis that he came up with a name for the guild. Ellis asks what the name is. He says that from now on, they will look for the light hidden behind the dark clouds, in other words, the moon, and asks what the interlocutor thinks about the hidden precious moon. El Loyal says it's a hidden gem in the clouds, and the girl remarks that it's too weird. The girl suggests making the precious moon the strongest guild, one that could defeat even the embodiment of the sun, and resolutely declares that they will do it. The man supports it, and the upper right corner states that the action takes place in the hall of the first squad, embodiment of the sun. A man hears the door creak. He asks what this meeting is, and a man with a bandage on his head explains that they only got this far because Mr. Moyd was here, the husband. Nero says it's too much trouble and asks why Lloyd didn't answer the guildmaster's call. The bottom right says Nero is a member of the Sun Incarnation, an A-class adventurer. He reports that Master Lloyd has been banished. The man asks, what? The guy reports that Kairos has suddenly brought Alan from the second squad in his place. Lloyd explains that, effective today, he's replacing Lloyd as the first squad commander and that it's a unanimous decision, and to those who object, he says. The guy reports that they haven't heard anything from Master Lloyd, to which the man replies that he has no place in this guild. Lloyd explains that they kicked Master Lloyd out. The man says that it was because of them that he left. He asks what he is talking about. Lloyd explains that they were originally assigned to the third squad, but were transferred to the first thanks to Master Lloyd, who trained them. He explains that they later learned of Master Lloyd's power, but never told the rest of the squad, and since his departure, they've been spiraling downward. The man reports that some have even started saying they received higher ranks because they are better friends with Kairos. He says they should pay for everything Master Moyle has done. Several men react with surprise. Lloyd remains silent and reports that the other man is so afraid of losing what he has that he didn't even say a word against his expulsion. The man in the background calls them vain bastards. The guy says he's asking where the man is going. Lloyd announces that she is leaving the incarnation of the sun. The caption says a week has passed. He explains that for a guild with only 2 members, this is surprising, and the girl says that this is their guild. El Loyal reports that it's definitely no worse than Incarnation of the Sun, and Augustus must have worked hard. Augustus says he'll arrange everything. El Loyal is surprised. The woman explains that their guild crest was designed by Selena. El Loyal asks if that woman, Selena, is the one who designed it. Selena reveals that her name is Selena. The woman asks if this is how she works as a servant, and Lloyd asks if she likes the design of the crest. Lloyd explains that the shining crescent moon in the clouds is perfect for their name. The girl reports that when she was told that she couldn't do something like that, she tried to do it herself, but couldn't create something worthy of showing to the world. The girl explains that she approached Selena and asked her to live with them, asking if everything was okay. Lloyd says that the maids really can do anything and turns to Master Lloyd. Lloyd says it's much quieter and quite empty here. She says Selena told her to take care of them so they could focus on training and so on, and expresses gratitude for that. Selena thanks him and says she'll do everything she can. He says he's been thinking about it and confirms, yes, of course, Selena. The woman asks if the cat is at his feet, to which the cat responds with a meow. The girl sitting on the ground asks who the cutie is here, and the girl standing says that she has been here since the morning, but she sees this guy for the first time and admits that she fell in love with him at first sight. The girl says Master Moya is too cute and offers to welcome him to the guild. Lloyd says he loves fluffy creatures himself and confirms that Master Moya is indeed cute. The woman with long hair holds Master Moya and says he's great. The girl in the center is surprised. He tells Selena that she's discovered a talent for naming everyone and everything. The girl with the cat asks why. Isn't he cute? Selena says the name Char sounds noble and suggests it. El Loyal says that so be it. It's a wonderful choice. The cat Nyanya confirms his name, and the girl and El Loyal report that it is rejected. He says there's a huge table inside, too. He asks if it's a dining table and turns to Master Moid, naming the guild. The woman reports that although they restored the old building that originally stood here, the expenses were fully covered by the Adventurers Association. El Loyal says that August has high expectations of them, so they need to achieve stunning results. The woman confirms this. El Loyal reports that they've studied the building and he explains that one of the most important areas of the Adventurers Guild's activities is dungeons. The girl asks how much he knows about dungeons. The girl says that she has been training at home and knows a little about them, then says that she will start from the basics. El Loyal suggests that perhaps they should talk about the description of the dungeons, to which the girl responds affirmatively. El Loyal explains that there are currently 3 types of dungeons in the country: volcanoes, forests, and deserts. Conquered dungeons are destroyed, and after half a year, he reports that most dungeons have 30 levels, and the lower you go, the stronger the monsters become. El Loyal reports that the final boss at the lowest level is so strong that no matter how many A ranks they have, they will still have a hard time. The girl says it's true, and asks why bother going there at all. He explains that there are 2 reasons. First, he explains, demonic materials sell for a high price, and second, guilds compete with each other to conquer the most dungeons. El Loyal says that if they rank low in the rankings, the guild will be in danger of disbanding. The girl shouts back that it will disband. El Loyal explains that the most important factor in this ranking is. He reports the number of dungeons conquered. He explains that if a guild conquers at least 1 dungeon, its rating will no longer be at 0, and that's why many guilds send their adventurers to conquer dungeons. The girl asks if this means they will too. Lloyd says that in a volcanic dungeon where there are many fire demons, this is the perfect dungeon for a girl. The girl says she's looking forward to it. He reports that he recently heard rumors that the incarnation of the sun has seriously taken up the conquest of the volcanic dungeons, and he is personally interested in them being the first to do so. The girl says she will do everything in her power. Lloyd announces that he wants to sign a cooperation agreement with the Blacksmiths Guild and the Alchemists Guild, and needs to visit One Eye's workshop. He says he'll leave Ellis alone with her mood. Ellis asks where he's going and whether he's decided to go there. The man says that he has friends there and everything is fine, and he says that then it will be simple. El Loyal says he hopes so. The man asks what's wrong, and El Loyal says nothing, he's going. A few days ago, a man said that Moid created a guild and said that he can't do it. Rafe reports that the president of the Adventurers Association is helping him. Rafe asks a man named Kairos if there's a reason to be so concerned. Kairos yells at Augustus, accusing him of interfering with his plans. The man says that at the moment, besides Moid, they don't have any powerful assets. The girl says the same thing. The woman says that in a few months they will either fall apart or beg for help. El Loyal says no. El Loyal explains that he was going to reduce him to routine work because he didn't want Moya to rise above him, trampling on his position, and notes that he is a good teacher and has produced good results. A woman approaches Lloyd, asking if he is Mr. Kairos. He explains that he has worked hard to achieve this position and explains that, in time, they can become a guild on par with the incarnation of the sun. Lloyd informs Rafe that they'll have to squash the pesky insects first, and Rafe agrees. Lloyd explains that they need to notify all the blacksmith and alchemist guilds that have contracts with them if they have any connection to Lloyd's guild. Abaddon announces that he will terminate the contract and apologizes. The girl asks why. The man explains that Kairos has long arms. Lloyd explains that he had no choice because breaking the contract with such a large guild as Incarnation of the Sun would be bad. The man says he understands that such a thing is unacceptable. He says battle. The girl says that they must fight. El Loyal says that Abaddon is going to join the Incarnation of the Sun, and the girl says that. He says they will crush him and rise to the very top. El Loyal says that in this situation, asking other guilds is useless and turns to Master Moid. Master Moid explains that it didn't work out. The girl says they desperately need a partnership contract. El Loyal explains that yes, for the sake of the adventurer market and at the fish. He says that to ensure a stable supply of goods, it is necessary to enter into a partnership agreement. The girl says that is clear, and he adds that. The girl says there's a trump card, and the man asks if it's a trump card. El Loyal explains that he created a blacksmith's guild and an alchemist's guild. The girl asks what, and El Loyal clarifies that it's a new guild. The girl asks if they're planning to. He says he wants to cheat. The girl says it's true. The guy says he doesn't want to leave the children to their fate and explains that he'll be founding new guilds under the wing of the main guild. The girl asks what he means. The guy replies, "Kids, wait, what are you even talking about?" The girl says she thought she was cheated into giving up their children and exclaims that this is how it is. Lloyd explains that the child refers to the guild, but that's not the correct term. The man says that they really need to keep an eye on these lovebirds and that it looks like they created the guild just for fun. The woman explains that her son became an S-rank adventurer thanks to. He says that it's still worth listening to the end of the story about the creation of the guild or something like that. The woman says they don't have any truly strong adventurers and just have to wait. Lloyd is surprised. Lloyd yells, asking what the damn guild rats are doing here, and calls for Nero. A woman asks what the guy is doing here. He says he doesn't understand why she's saying that. The man yells, "What the hell is a rat doing here?" The girl reacts to the blow. Lloyd says hey and says he asked a question. The man punches him. He says not to try to figure out how to sneak out. The girl is silent, then says, The girl says she was gathering information about Moida on Master Kairos' orders. Lloyd says, damn it, and names the old bastard who always gets in Master Moida's way. The girl demands Lloyd take his words back and asks if he's trying to get back at her. He tells her to take back her insulting words about the guild leader and says that he has already left the incarnation of the sun. The man says that he doesn't care anymore. The girl says, A. Lloyd asks what the punishment is. The girl says that his contract hasn't ended yet. He says he gave everything away and that they are paying more for themselves. The girl asks where he got the money and explains that her master advised her to save money, so she has about 100 million lying around. The girl clarifies that it's 100 million and says that it was expected. The boy says that Mr. Kairos won't stand idly by and let an A-rank adventurer get away so easily, and Lloyd explains that then why Moid, an S-rank adventurer, was so easily kicked out. The woman says she doesn't know how to know that. He says he probably cheated to get the S-class. The girl says it's fast. The man throws the sword, which sticks into the ground, and Lloyd exclaims. Girl makes a sound, takes a sword, guy makes a sound, girl notices a sword flying at her. El Loyal tells her to stay away from Master Moid and warns her that if she tries to spy on him again, he'll come for her. The girl makes a noise of displeasure. El Loyal tells her that if she understands, she should leave, to which the girl replies that she'll remember. He says that he has removed the obstacles, and now it is time to start the real work today. He wants to try to talk to the master when he is alone. He says that he will knock on the gate doors until they open for him, and says that he has been trying to talk to Master Lloyd for a week, but Lloyd knocks on the door. The girl informs him that Master Lloyd is seriously considering founding 2 new craft guilds, and explains that she'd prefer to discuss important matters in her soundproofed room. Lloyd says he feels strangely nervous, though he doesn't feel guilty, and asks if Master L. Lloyd says he's the one who's going to apply to create a guild of blacksmiths and alchemists, as it's quite simple. The woman says she wants to see if he can find the best staff. The girl says it'll be pretty simple, but there's a small problem with it. He explains that if they had a cooperation agreement, they could pay in installments. He explains that even a small guild like theirs didn't need to borrow much money since they were going underground. Lloyd explains that this is a typical partnership agreement, services up front and payment later, at least that's how it was at Solency. The girl explains that if you're starting a guild, you can't just pay in installments. She explains that creating a guild requires a lot of money for buildings and equipment. He says he can't afford it now and is going into debt and asks for a source of financing. The girl says she'll tell them to invest the money immediately. He explains that no investor will bet on them, they have no merit. The girl says they'll be fine. Lloyd asks who the investors are and knocks on the door. The man says Master Moid has a visitor. Lloyd says he'll be right there. The girl asks who it could be, and he says he doesn't know. The guy speaks awkwardly, and Lloyd says that they haven't seen each other for a long time and apologizes for coming uninvited. El Loyal asks Nero what he's doing here. Nero tells her that someone from Squad Zero was snooping around, and he caught him, and he's not a spy for Kairos. El Loyal is surprised by the word Zero. The girl asks Master Moid what his connection is to Nero. The girl demands he leave immediately, and says she won't allow those who betrayed Moid to stand here. He says that perhaps Master Moid's modesty allows him to remain silent, but sometimes he looks very sad. The girl explains that Master Moid is suffering greatly. Lloyd says Ellis is fine, and then adds that even if Master Moid says so, he can't forgive him because he was a traitor. Ellis says, A. The man explains to Nero that Ellis didn't mean to offend him, and the woman confirms this. The man apologizes and says he's very sorry. He says that if he had defended himself, no expulsion would have happened, and says that he doesn't know whether he should say anything else. The girl says she knows and can't complain about the insults, then asks why he's here. Lloyd says he's come to work for Master Moid. The man asks if he wants to work for him, since Lloyd belongs to the incarnation of the sun. He reveals that Nero is an A-rank adventurer, and it's hard to imagine Kairos letting him go. He says that Nero, why him? He explains Nero's class as an A-rank affiliate adventurer, a warrior of light, and the meaning of his abilities, including physical. El Loyal says he left the guild and managed to save money. The man asks how much he saved and how much it was. El Loyal says about 100 million. The man clarifies that El Loyal didn't spend anything, only saved. El Loyal confirms he saved thanks to mentoring. He tells Master Moid that he wants to be strong under his command and asks to be accepted, and also thanks him for becoming so strong and wants to repay this favor by being useful. Master Moid informs them that while they are not yet strong enough to defeat the incarnation of the sun, they intend to. Lloyd says he doesn't want the motivation of those in such a guild to depend on others. He asks the hero what he wants to do when he joins this guild. The hero replies that Lloyd explains that the hero has the talent to become the strongest, and it's up to him to decide whether to use it or. He says he wants to be strong. The girl tells him that he's an A ranker and already strong enough, and there are dozens of A and S rankers in the country and even more abroad. Lloyd explains that if he hadn't met his companion that day, he would have died in the field without ever knowing what he was capable of, and thanks to him, he learned what it was like to be beyond his limits. Lloyd then says he wants to gain a power beyond his comprehension. He says that all abilities are trained almost to the limit, and there is nowhere to go further. The girl speaks to Moid, addressing him with surprise. Lloyd informs him that even so, the man explains that he wants to challenge them and that any interaction with them will make him stronger. The man expresses disdain with the puff sound. He laughs and says that Nero is a good guy. He informs them that Ellis and Nero really want to join them and asks if he's okay with it. Ellis says that he respects Master Lloyd's opinion and regrets that he wasn't respected in the guild, and then agrees. Lloyd announces that it's decided then and greets Nero. The girl thanks him. He states that it is true that Nero's abilities have reached their limits, and this is the only way. But if he wants to go further, his fighting style, which combines many skills, has already been perfected. He says that he wants Nero to master one more skill and suggests starting right now. N. Lloyd says he doesn't have access to any abilities. The man asks, what? He says he wants the other person to master a unique skill magic destruction. The man asks what magic destruction is. Lloyd says that when Nero can do this, he will become a fierce fighter capable of rivaling an S-class and encourages him to push his limits using the tips. He states that he has the qualities to rival an S-class, but magic destruction is unavailable to him. He explains that in order to use magic destruction, all other skills must be sealed. The man asks why they need to be sealed. El Loyal explains that in Ellis's case, when she developed a powerful quality, she couldn't activate other skills. Ellis asks if all she needs to do is try. El Loyal informs her that if she knows how to wield a sword, they'll have a wider range of tactics and encourages her to move forward. He asks Ellis if she ever learned fencing. Ellis replies that when she started practicing the water ball, for some reason she couldn't fight anymore. Ellis clarifies that she couldn't. He exclaims, "Ouch!" Ellis yells, "Hiya," and strikes. Lloyd explains that because her innate qualities are so strong, they cannot coexist with other skills. In other words, if all other skills are sealed, then the innate qualities will be easier to develop. He speaks clearly and informs us that Nero has become the youngest adventurer to reach A rank, mastering several skills, and that if he trains to imprint these skills, Nero, the girl says that if you think about it, the man speaks clearly. El Loyal informs that abilities will be temporarily reduced to rank B or C. The man explains that the reduction will be from B to C. He says he's throwing away 2 years of training and development just on the advice of his interlocutor and asks if he can become even stronger. The man says he didn't force El Loyal and calls him Mr. El Loyal. He replies that yes, definitely. El Loyal says he'll gain unparalleled abilities, but then he could lose his A rank forever. The man says he'll do this and give up all his other skills and says he's happy as long as he can get stronger under El Loyal's guidance. The man adds that he's Plo. He tells Nero that he's really starting to like him. Lloyd says he respects the other man too and asks if the feeling is mutual. The girl orders them both to stand. He says that he is Master Moid's partner, and the man says, "Don't be impudent." El Loyal says he was under Mr. Moid's tutelage at the sun's incarnation before his interlocutor and is Mr. Moid's right-hand man. The girl says that in that case, she's the first, as Master Moid gave her advice 3 years ago. El Loyal addresses them both. He says that Master Lloyd should not interfere, and Master Lloyd confirms this with one word. The cat makes noises. The man suggests they start training. Lloyd admits he was a bit unprofessional, and the girl apologizes. He says it's time to act. The guy explains to Ellis that she should simply hold Nero at gunpoint and shoot water balls. Lloyd informs her that Ellis can only use water balls. The man says he should avoid this magic to improve his agility, as he has high durability and can handle such weak magic. The girl says he just looked at her with pity, and he says that she seems to be having a hard time. He asks how. El Loyal tells Nero that he won't regret it later, and Nero says that by the way. He says he shouldn't avoid the water balloon. The man asks if it's related to increased stamina, and he says it's not related at all. Lloyd tells you to avoid magic by not moving, the man says. He says he already told me that they need to study magic disruption and asks me to make it so that the water balls Ellis shoots are cut in 100 different ways. The man asks what magic disruption does. The girl asks if she should cut it, and Lloyd says it's magic. He says that a mass of magic and magical power can be shielded and distributed, but it cannot be cut off, and in this world there has not been a single case of magic being cut. He reports that this is a normal reaction. The girl says that her water ball is impossible to cut, and Lloyd says that magic destruction is capable of this. The girl asks Ellis if she can make a big water balloon. Ellis agrees and says that she will do it. Loyal explains that this is the only thing Ellis has a talent for, and the man is surprised by her size and asks if she's scanning. Ellis says everyone's been talking about her lately and asks if she's abnormal. Loyal explains that she's unique. The girl says she'll take another 100 shots tomorrow because she wants to get better. He and the man are silent. The man says he's fine. He asks, M? The man asks, Nero? A. Lloyd says he'll start. Then he yells, ha, and throws a punch. He runs away from the big ball. The girl announces that she has won. The girl asks the man if he's sure he can do it, and Lloyd asks if they can stop there. The man firmly replies, no way. Then the man jumps into a large drop of liquid, sword in hand. He says that if Master Moid says so, then he must be sure of it. The man asks if he can do it, and he explains that one should not cut blindly, but rather focus on it. He says that he is confident that the man can do it, and even if he is not now. Lloyd says he believes them, and that there must be something here that he doesn't understand, then says the word focus and size. He strikes a large energy ball with his sword. The man and girl look on in surprise. Lloyd says ha and shakes his hand. The man tells Nero he understands. Nero replies, yes. The man thanks Master Lloyd. Nero says, status. The man says he still has a lot to achieve and advises him to keep working. The girl says Ellis should keep creating orbs until he tells him to stop, and the boy is happy that it's only in one day. The boy asks where the girl is going, and she explains that she's creating a blacksmith's guild and a guild. Lloyd announces that he's decided to recruit a few people. The girl explains that she understands and asks him to be careful. He says, and asks to throw the water balloon again. The girl says so. He says, and suggests doing it. The girl says, let's get started. The woman says he knew strong people were hard to find when he was in the sun's embodiment, so he searched everywhere. Lloyd says, The man asks what all the fuss is about. The man in the top hat thanks everyone for being here and announces that he's having a seizure. The man announces that a slave auction is about to begin. He remains silent and thinks that perhaps he will find suitable talent here. The man starts with the first, explaining that the slave trade is legal in this country and auctions are held on the streets at irregular intervals. He explains that, of course, there are many people who don't like the slave trade, and there are probably complaints every time it takes place. LLOI. He says the government isn't against it, rather, they're sponsoring it. The man explains that there are slums in this country. The girl explains that there are thousands of people who are homeless and jobless, and who fight hunger every day to reduce the mortality rate. The woman reports that the government is providing them with food donations. The man explains that until the underlying poverty problem is addressed, this will simply be a continuation of the status quo. The man continues that, therefore, a method has been chosen to keep them alive as slaves. Lloyd reports that the 17th lot is a girl from the Beast tribe, only 23 years old, very strong in combat and the highlight of this issue. Lloyd explains that her combat stats are very high. Lloyd says he's confident. The man asks if there's no more money and suggests they settle for 1,000. The girl looks down silently. He says it's wearing him out and thinks it's better to quit the slave auctions and try something else. Lloyd reports that this is the last slave this time. The auctioneer announces that this is a young dark elf and the price is very high, starting at 10,000. The crowd is surprised and asks about the dark elf, and the auctioneer explains the backward compatibility with elves and notes that it is indeed a dark elf. Loyal says they're a symbol of evil. They give him the creeps, and he doesn't even want to breathe the same air as them. Loyal calls it disgusting. The man asks if anyone will buy it and asks who will choose her. He says he will buy her and asks to let him buy her. He says his name is Moid and he will not harm her. The girl remains silent. The guy asks Erna if she has a family. Erna answers with a question. The woman says she has no family. Loyal asks how she knows this and clarifies that it's about her name. The elf explains that she has an appraisal skill. He says that it is a skill that allows you to find out abilities and talents. Lloyd looks up. The girl asks why she was bought without talent, then says she's just a waste of time. After that, the girl sighs. He says he can't understand how such a young girl can dislike herself so much. The girl explains that everything is fine and suggests that Loyal get some rest and that she will listen to him later. He asks what exactly she means. The girl says that she is dirty and who touched her. Lloyd says it's just superstition and suggests they take a little rest. The man agrees. Erna says she's warm. He says slavery is terrible for a 10-year-old girl. It's unknown how many hardships she had to endure, and if she wants to be independent, he would like to help her. He explains that if Erna is willing to work for him, he gives her his word and says that she has. Lloyd reports that rumors of Nero's departure have begun to spread and explains that it won't be long before other guilds take notice. The girl hopes that they'll mature with time, and the man says this with a tense expression. Nike laughs and says that they finally have their chance. The boy reports to Nike that all the troops have been assembled, to which Nike replies that it's good. Lloyd says that after a long time in the lower ranks, they finally have a chance to rise up. The man reports that it seems D-rank Nego has left Incarnation of the Sun and joined a new guild. The guy says that Nero is the youngest genius to reach A rank, and with his Demon Fang skill, he can go even higher. So, he says this. The guy says they're challenging them to a guild war and will take Nero. Lloyd says it's time for the next step. He says that this outfit suits Erna very well. Erna replies that perhaps it does. The girl says that these are clothes that the lady wore as a child. He confirms that the outfit suits her very well. Serena thanks him, and he thanks Serena. Serena replies that it's okay. Lloyd says he wants to introduce Erna to his friends and suggests they go. Erna remains silent. The woman says, uh-huh. The man says he's back and asks what those balls are. The girl is surprised and says, huh? The girl explains it's a water ball, and the man says that's not what he meant. The man calls Lloyd master. The other man says he's back, and they. El Loyal says he's the only one surprised to see so many water balloons, and the girl asks who the girl is. He explains that he brought Erna with him because he wanted to introduce them both as soon as possible, and asks Erna to introduce herself. Erna says she's Erna. Ellis says her name is Ellis, and it's nice to meet you. Nero says it's nice. Ellis says Erna is so sweet. Lloyd says he doesn't care if dark elves are a symbol of disaster or any other nonsense. If they took her, then she deserves it. The girl says she doesn't know much about dark elves and that she shares the same opinion. He thanks them both, the girl asks. Loyal where he picked her up, he tells her it was at a slave auction. The girl, shocked, screams that it's a slave auction and asks what the little girl was doing there, after which she complains to management, explaining that many people. The girl says it's not normal, but it's also a way for people from the slums to get work. Lloyd explains that if you find a good buyer, you can earn a decent living, and that's better than starving to death. The girl responds with a question. He says that very often people don't get jobs simply because they're from the slums, and many children who, for whatever reason, can't stay in their hometowns are put up for sale. The elf reports that perhaps Erna. The woman explains that while slaves are slaves, no one can touch them unless they are bought, and that's one way to survive in this country. El Loyal says that as long as they're alive, that's all that matters. The man remains silent. The girl addresses El Loyal, calling him Master. LL. The girl asks why they are so kind to her and says that she is worthless. Then the girl says that she is worthless. He listens. Lloyd tells Erna that he knows about the bad treatment of dark elves in the elven village. Erna asks why. The girl asks if they're being treated badly. She then explains that they're talking about dark elves. The man explains that dark elves are considered to be backward relatives of normal elves. The girl speaks, the woman remains silent. Lloyd explains that dark elves have brown skin because they committed a mortal sin long ago, leading to the stereotype that elves are pure, and dark elves are a symbol of misfortune. He explains that elves are good at alchemy, but dark elves. The girl says that then why were they treated like that? He says that's probably why they are called symbols of disaster, and he heard that they used to be equal. The girl reports that somewhere, elves have started taking away the rights of dark elves and using them as weapons, and says it's terrible. The man says that's all he knows. Lloyd says he wants to know why Erna left the elfin village and was sold at a slave auction. He wants to know about her past. Erna says she's not interested. Lloyd says they want to know about her. The elf says that in their country and in other countries, there is still a war between races, and her parents were forced into the war by the elves. She says that the girl is now one of them. He says that his parents were killed in the war, and then he could remember them. The girl explains that. The woman reports that there were many dark elves in her situation, and that it is true that they are more prone to fighting due to their innate qualities, but El Loyal says he can't do that. The man asks why. El Loyal explains that he has no combat sense and was deemed useless during training. He says he was sold into slavery because he couldn't fight. The girl says he's useless and asks how that's possible. Loyal explains that he was banished from the village 2 years ago, when he was 8, and that he has never been bought in all that time. The girl says she has nothing at all, and then explains that this is not true and that Master Loyal brought him here. She is sure that Erna has qualities that, he says he'll make the girl blossom. The girl says it's impossible. He explains that they want to create 2 guilds under the auspices of their union, one of which is the Alchemists Guild. He also says that they want her to become the head of this guild. The girl reacts. Loyal says the girl is truly different from the elves. The girl explains that Loyal has a talent for manipulating magic that is unmatched by the elves. She explains that she's just like Erna and thought she had nothing to offer. Even after becoming a blacksmith, she had nothing to offer, and the girl says that Master Lloyd taught her to master what she loves, and that she's discovered a talent for magic controlling a water sphere. The girl calls for a look at the large water sphere. The woman, amazed, says the sphere is so big even without the chanting. The woman explains that if Master Lloyd hadn't found her 2 years ago, she would be dead now, and thanks to him, she can expand her capabilities and use her unique skill, to which Lloyd asks if it's unique. The man takes the sword. He shatters the magic ball with his sword. He reports that the boy has made great progress in just 1 day of training and admires the power of magic. The boy rejoices. The girl with pointy ears asks if she can become like him. The girl with the bow confidently says that Master Lloyd says he wants her to be with them, and the man replies that he is. The girl asks if she is a waste of time and if she can be useful. He says that is exactly it. The girl refuses to let them call her incompetent and begins to speak, but Lloyd interrupts her, picking her up and calling her Master Moid. Lloyd declares that he will definitely make her the best alchemist in the world. The right panel depicts a clock tower under a moonlit and starry sky. The left panel depicts 3 girls sleeping under a blanket. Lloyd reports that the sword glides through the air with ease. He says everything is going too well. He reports that he was surprised by how much they have expanded their abilities. He explains that he never thought he could cut a water balloon in half so quickly, and Ellis's water balloon is becoming more and more accurate. Lloyd says he's confident the 2 of them will continue to grow and develop. The woman says that others believe in her and follow her. He says that for the sake of 3 people who believe in him, he will do well. Lloyd says he will definitely lead this guild to the strongest. He reports that with their new comrades, their resolve grows deeper and stronger. The girl yells, "Ha!" and fires a magic projectile. He reflects the projectile with his shield and says that he realized that a stationary and a moving target are very different, and it's harder than he thought. The girl says she still can't understand it. The man says he already told her, Ellis. Loyal says he wants the girl to learn to precisely control speed and direction, and suggests firing a water ball fast enough to hit Nero without hurting him. The girl says she doesn't know what training she should do, and Loyal says he's thought about it too. The man asks if. The girl reports that Mr. August said he found a good man who could help, and he went to pick him up, and then explains that's why he took Erna into the Adventurers Association. The man says, The girl says she's so happy, and Lloyd says it's wonderful, but he's sorry he's making her work at an age when she really wants to play. The elf says that if you don't work, you won't eat, and adds that Nero said so. Lloyd asks how she knows all this. Lloyd says that it looks like he needs to give Nero a lecture. The image shows the roof of a building with turrets and decorative elements without characters or text. The man asks Lloyd if the girl he mentioned is talented in alchemy. Lloyd confirms and calls her cute. The man explains that Erna has all the qualities to be one of the best in the country, and she is unrivaled in cuteness, the man remarks. He tells her that she really does have talent. He asks August what he said about the guy who could help them. August says that's exactly it, and he pats him on the shoulder. August calls Nick. Nick greets them and says he knows nothing about hierarchy, so if they want to hire him, they'll have to make some concessions, to which Lloyd says Nick is annoying. The girl expresses displeasure and says she doesn't care what the dark elf says. She explains to August that the man says he was almost sure and asks if it was true. Loyal explains that Nick is acting this way and trying to make people hate him because he doesn't want to be manipulated, but asks him not to worry about it. Loyal reveals that they were originally looking for someone to fill the administrator position, but is now inviting Nick to be a blacksmith. He says that his primary talent is management. Then he explains that he has the same ability to evaluate as Augustus. Lloyd reveals that Nick was being deliberately serious to hide it, and explains that he has the potential to be one of the best in the country, even better than Abaddon from One Eye's workshop, and that Nick isn't cut out for a typical leadership position. Lloyd says that he's here. He announces that Erna, who is standing behind him, will be the head of the Alchemists Guild. The man makes a sound of surprise. El Loyal dismisses this as nonsense and asks if the man has gone mad, and also asks if he would allow a boy he doesn't even know to become the guild leader. The man says he knows of El Loyal's talent and that he is suitable both as a manager and as a blacksmith. The guy says, oh, he says he doesn't know anything about him, even now, and that he was told he's a good manager. Lloyd says he gave up everything to get here, and at the same time asks Nick, the blacksmith. The guy says he hates to say it, but he doesn't think the other person is cut out for it. The man explains that the other person needs to understand what he wants. Lloyd says he wants to know what the other person is good at. He explains that he did it on purpose because he wanted to be told he wasn't good enough to be a manager, and now they want him to be a guildmaster. He says he doesn't understand. Nick asks Lloyd what he wants. The man says that the blacksmith is working on a sword, and Lloyd explains what kind of sword it is and who it is intended for. He says that Lloyd says he wants to become a blacksmith. He says that then you need to go work for him, and he will help you to fully realize your potential. The man asks Lloyd to do the same for him as Mr. Moya did because he owes him a lot, and asks if Lloyd would like to become chairman too. Lloyd agrees to work for the man, but warns that if he doesn't live up to his expectations, he'll be gone immediately. He says he'll do his best to live up to expectations, and the man agrees. The man asks Lloyd to come in for a minute, explaining that they need to talk about something else. He's silent, and the man puts his hand on his shoulder. The guy thinks that maybe Lloyd says that, of course, they'll teach him blacksmithing, but most likely they'll just use him. He says this has happened many times before and will happen again. He says he dreamed of becoming a blacksmith, but his blacksmithing skills haven't developed in a long time, and if he doesn't succeed here, maybe he's not cut out for it. He hands the guy an envelope saying, "Here." The guy reacts with surprise. Lloyd says he knew it would happen. The girl expresses bewilderment. He says that with Nero's arrival, they have attracted attention, for better or worse, and it might not be an easy ride this time. Lloyd announces that now that they have more members, they'll be holding their first guild meeting, and begins with the word, so. The man says, wait a minute, what's with that attitude? He says he's just doing what he wants. The man says they have a meeting and shouldn't yawn. The guy replies, oh, come on, Nero, and warns that he's about to get it. Lloyd says that he doesn't want to set strict rules in the guild and suggests leaving everything as is, and also says that compared to the Nero they met, Nick is much more polite. He says now isn't the right time to ask, but he wants to make sure the three of them are okay with Nick joining. The girl and the other girl confirm they have no objections. The man says he's okay with it if the others approve. The guy remains silent. Lloyd says thank you and explains that the guild's policy is to allow the unfortunate to prosper and reach the top with them. He explains that they want to be number one in the guild rankings, and to that end, their immediate and specific goal is to completely conquer the volcanic dungeon. The girl reports that the incarnation of the sun is currently working on the volcanic dungeon. He expresses surprise. El Loyal says they've never been able to embody the sun. The girl explains that they're the weakest guild. The girl says that if Master El Loyal says they can do it, then they can, and they'll be able to live up to his expectations. The man says that if Mr. El Loyal, the guy says he doesn't understand what's going on, and the girl expresses surprise. The guy says it's madness, a dungeon that even the incarnation of the sun has a hard time in. The man asks where they're so confident, and if everyone is mentally challenged, explaining that a small guild couldn't handle it. The girl and the man say Master L is with them. The guy says he's happy, but it sounds strange. The girl says she believes in Lloyd too. Lloyd thanks Erna. The man, with a serious expression, says something sharp, and the other man wonders how these guys can trust this man so much. The girl asks them not to take everything on themselves and urges them both to stop. He says that these two are ready to kill themselves and asks who this guy is. The man tells him to come to terms with it. The girl asks if she can do it. The girl says they can handle it. The girl says they can't lose to the incarnation of the sun, and the man explains there's no need to rush, as Master Lloyd said yesterday. Lloyd explains that the incarnation of the sun can't conquer this dungeon. Lloyd explains that the second squad, the one that will take on the dungeon, lacks cohesion. The boy asks why. The girl repeats the word cohesion. He says there are a lot of selfish people there. The man confirms that this is true. He explains that few people inside the guild noticed, and explains that Alan, who was the only one holding the squad together, was transferred to the first squad. Lloyd reports that he doesn't think the embodiment of the sun will be able to conquer the volcanic dungeon. He says that today they will have to wait and see, although Master Lloyd said so. The girl stands silently nearby. The girl says that they can always go a little further, and Lloyd agrees and suggests going. He reports that Ellis and Nero should have already reached the dungeon and asks what about the interlocutor. The woman announces that she will allow everyone to hone their craftsmanship skills. The man stands silently nearby. Lloyd tells him to follow him. The guy asks if they're going through a rough patch. The man remains silent. He says he could probably use his management skills. The man explains that they'll be needed when the guild has more members, but not yet. The man explains that whether management skills will be useful is entirely up to Lloyd, and he asks what that means. Lloyd says he will bring in promising artisans in the future, and the man asks if an unskilled blacksmith will manage. The woman says there are two of them. He says the devil. Lloyd reports that this is Nick and Erna's workshop. The man expresses surprise. The girl says her workshop is amazing. He says he's glad she's happy. The man asks how much money was spent on it. Lloyd reports that there is a funding system for promising guilds. He says he's been asking for this for a long time, along with the construction of a guild house. He says he honestly intended to borrow money for the construction, but Augustus saved them again by asking for a bunch of favors from different places. Lloyd says we should check out Erna's alchemist guild first. He says it's very spacious here. Lloyd says it's zucchini grass. The girl says it's red lizard tears. He says that Erna knows a lot, and the girl turns to Lloyd, calling him master. El Loyal says he loves plants, trees, ores, and everything that can be found in nature, and used to spend a lot of time in the elven forests, communing with nature. The woman says that she once wanted to take up alchemy, but she was always told that dark elves should only be able to fight. Lloyd says he would be interested, although he thought it would never come true. The elf says she'll do her best to live up to expectations. She then explains that Lloyd has a high status, suitable for alchemy. He says he understands. Lloyd explains that the talent for manipulating magical power should be an unrivaled assistant in alchemy. He announces that he is going to increase the level of manipulation of magical power. Lloyd says she wants to ask to play with clay. He is silent. The girl is silent. The guy says, "Yeah," the man asks, "and that's it." The girl says, "Well, try it and see." Lloyd explains that they'll go to Nick's workshop and Erna can do whatever she wants. The girl says, "Uh-huh." The girl is silent. The woman is silent. Lloyd touches the stone and says he doesn't know why, then says, The girl says that this is not ordinary clay. She touches the clay and says that it is something unusual. The girl asks why. The man reports that Master Lloyd did not tell him about this, and Lloyd remains silent. The woman says she needs to find out. He says, "Okay, Nick." Lloyd says he wants the other person to tinker with scrap metal and asks them not to worry about the cost of materials, just do what they want. He asks what to do with all this trash. He says he's sure it will be a shortcut to developing the necessary talents. He says he'll be back before nightfall. The other guy asks where he's going. Lloyd says to say hello to his elders. He reports that the very survival of this guild is at stake. Lloyd announces that he is here for the first time and welcomes everyone. The guard informs that this is a restricted area and demands to know the reason. He says that he has a letter now. The man apologizes and asks Lloyd to move on, addressing him as Mr. Lloyd. Lloyd responds. The man greets Lloyd, calling him Master. August asks if he's come to accompany him. He thanks him and explains that he just arrived himself. He tells August not to be nervous, everything will be fine. Lloyd tells Augustus to come in here and explains that, as usual, despite his appearance, Augustus is quite obedient. Augustus agrees, and the man says that they are opening now. The man says there's no need to show his excitement. He says he's glad to meet the guildmaster of the Hidden Moon people for the first time. The man with long blonde hair explains that the youth of our time are frightening in their strength. The girl says he's so cute, and she wants to talk to him alone. The man remains silent. El Loyal informs them that Kairos from the Incarnation of the Sun won't be joining them this time, so they're all here. The man says to keep things in order. El Loyal says, well, the man announces that they are starting a meeting. In the right panel, the man says, In the left panel, the girl explains that no matter what she does, nothing changes, and the man says, ha! The girl says that she wants to live up to Master Lloyd's expectations, but everything is complicated, and indeed, Master Lloyd said that she needs to manipulate magical power. Lloyd asks if it's possible she won't transform unless he uses magic. The girl remains silent. The girl asks what magical power is, and says that manipulation means it is somewhere here. The elf says that it's in the clay, in me. Then she falls silent and lowers her gaze. The girl says there's something here and asks if it's everywhere. The girl says it could be. The girl reports that she can now breathe freely. Lloyd reports that everything is going swimmingly so far and says they are still on the upper levels. The girl explains that she has never been in a dungeon before, but she feels like there is more magic here than outside, and she's not sure if that's true. He says he doesn't understand how one can feel magic, and the girl asks what it means to feel. The girl says it would be easier if he could see her, and that, of course, that's impossible. She says she can count on one hand the number of people in the world who can see mana. The man says it's a magical power. The girl says it's beautiful and says it's so soft. Lloyd asks what that even means. He then explains that playing with clay, tinkering with metal, and asks if that changes anything. He says that these guys have so much talent and now they are training in the dungeons. Lloyd says, should he do this? He says the man has talent. The man explains that Nick isn't a very good blacksmith. The man tells Nick that he shouldn't touch metal, to which Nick agrees. Nick asks how he should do it and immediately says he knows. Lloyd says he will do as he is told. The guy says this one is harder than the others, and it feels similar to the other one. He asks if they're made of the same ore and suggests trying to glue them together or something. First, in the top right, the exclamation, "damn," is heard. Then, in the bottom right, the folded items are shown, and LLOIL reports that he overdid it. In the bottom left, LLOIL explains that he had so much fun that he spent it all without thinking, but he will complete the given tasks. He says he does what anyone can do, and wonders if one can become a blacksmith by doing what anyone can do. Lloyd says he must do what he can. He explains that he's needed as a blacksmith, and even if he doesn't have the talent, he must put in the effort. Lloyd then asks what he should do next. He is silent, then says that it is talent. The girl says that everyone said that Lloyd thought she was talented, and Lloyd says that. Lloyd says he was simply recommended by the president of the Adventurers Association. The man explains that Lloyd didn't choose him. The man says he. The guy asks if this is his place. Lloyd informs him that there are two matters on the agenda today, a Heroes Roundtable and a new guild. He explains that the Roundtable of Heroes is a global dueling tournament that gathers the strongest guilds from every country once a year, where instead of wars, they compete for national power. The man explains that the Round Table of Heroes is most important. The boy asks if. Lloyd announces that the conversation will now be about a new guild and asks for those with questions to raise their hands. The woman speaks first. He raises his hand. The woman says it's a pleasure to meet him and introduces herself as the guild master of Green Mountain Summit. Lloyd says he heard about her, that she is a guild master of the 7th rank in all arcane arts, and reports that she is the most terrible witch, omniscient in matters of magic, mint. He says he's never seen an SS rank before and thinks the nickname Most Fearsome Witch is fitting for her and also thinks SS is the limit. The man says his question is quite simple. The woman explains that it doesn't make any sense at all, and a description of Mint appears next to it, along with a decree. The woman says that if they don't take action, their guild will fall apart, and Lloyd asks what they will do. The man says Mint is too straightforward. Mint remains silent. The girl says she's talking to Lloyd, and Lloyd says he sees her. He says it's okay to keep his mouth shut. The man says it's clear it's going to be hard, isn't it, and exclaims, "Oh my God." The man remains silent. Lloyd explains that they are newcomers with no power or money, with only 4 members, only 2 of whom know how to fight, and that they have the misconception that they are A-level adventurers. He explains that such a guild will soon become their prey. He says he doesn't understand what's going on. The man says he doesn't know and gets up. Lloyd says he can whisper it in her ear. The woman agrees, but only if it's not nonsense. He tells her that our magicians are the future, and that they are so talented that they will surpass her, and also asks if she would like to see. The girl asks what, and says that it is some kind of witchcraft talent. Lloyd says she can play the evil witch card. The man on the right says he doesn't understand what they're saying, and the man on the left asks what exactly they're saying. A woman says she thinks a breakup is imminent and calls her interlocutor a fool. He says he'll do everything possible to prevent it. The woman laughs, and he remains silent. Lloyd says he thought there would be something important there and asks what they talked about, assuming it had to do with secret things and the like. The man says he doesn't care. Lloyd announces that there are only 4 participants left and it's all over. The man asks if Mint can hear him and if he can do telepathy and calls him by name. Mint is surprised and asks if that's Lloyd. The woman says everything is fine, and Lloyd says she's not lying about what she just said. He says that lie detector magic makes the other guild's positions more fragile. The man says it's true and thanks her for her speech. He explains that he's only guessing, but he's almost certain. The girl asks when he'll show her. Lloyd announces that his guild will begin their rivalry today and proposes to show that they can overcome the overwhelming difference in strength. The woman says that it sounds exciting and that she's looking forward to it. Then he says that he's glad to hear it, at which point the woman laughs. The woman promises the result will exceed all expectations, then says that Nika is next. Nika reveals that he is Guildmaster Nika from Demon Fangs and says, "It's nice to meet you." Lloyd says he has leadership skills, but as far as he remembers, their guild is ranked 22nd, and they probably lack resources. He says that they need to get up too. He says that this time he would like to ask something of the newcomers. Lloyd says he's offering to take part in a guild competition against them. The man says that when they win, he says they'd like to have Nero, an A-rank adventurer, handed over to them. The man warns them not to get carried away. The woman points out that they're a low-level guild. Another man says that with Nike stats, it's not a possibility. L. Loyal states that his guild has the right to make suggestions and asks the other guild masters to shut up. He announces that the rule is that no rivalry can be proposed to any guilds outside of the same group, and asks everyone to be quiet. The man and woman make sounds of displeasure. The man in the hat coughs. He says, "So?" Lloyd asks what the rules will be, and the man with horns says it's a siege. The woman says it all depends on the numbers. The man says it's okay, and the girl asks if he's serious. He agrees. The man and L. Loyal discuss whether L. Loyal is confident that things will be fine in 2 weeks, and L. Loyal confirms this. The man says it will be a siege. He says that he cannot allow himself to be weak because weakness is death. Lloyd says he'll make him regret ever having his eye on Nero and asks if it's Nero. Lloyd asks where Ellis is. The woman says that when they were leaving the dungeon, Ellis said she still had things to do, so she asked her to go first and greets Lloyd. The girl announces that she is home and welcomes Ellis back. Lloyd says the girl looks happy and asks where she's been. The girl says she'll report back later. He and the man express bewilderment. Lloyd asks where Erna and Nick are. The woman says they haven't left yet, sir. The man says he'll go check on them. The guy says he's going with the girl. The girl says she's going alone. The man expresses surprise. He addresses someone by saying, "Hey, and then, with surprise, says in." The woman says she's contacting Master Lloyd. Lloyd says Erna can manipulate magic and is surprised by such a concentration of magic. He explains what happened to the clay. He explains that this clay only deforms if the manipulation of magic is higher than D rank. L. Loyal reports that her magic manipulation E stat has changed to C. The girl asks if she's been playing around too much. L. Loyal says no, it's just as he thought, and that she really is very talented. The girl rejoices and says it's true. Hooray, L. He reveals that he deliberately did not teach her magic because he thought it would be better if she learned it instinctively, and that, of course, he thought it would take longer. Lloyd says she did it in a day. He says that Erna has really grown up. Lloyd says he was just about to go see his interlocutor. The man says, "Here's how." The girl asks him what's wrong and why he feels bad. He replies that he doesn't feel bad, The guy tells Lloyd that Lloyd says he's thinking about leaving the guild. The girl asks if Nick is leaving. He asks what happened, since he's been training all day. The man explains that at first he thought the guild was the worst, but in fact, it's the opposite. The man explains that he's at the highest position, and few can handle him. Lloyd says he's just a regular guy and not one to hang out with people like that, and explains that he wasn't hired because he's talented like Erna and the others. Lloyd tells Nick about the metal he was tinkering with. Nick asks if he can take a look at it. He says that it is. Lloyd explains that he was trying to make a new type of metal that would be made from better scrap metal, but it didn't work. He reports that Erna doesn't have an estimate. Erna says the metal is a bit heavy, but otherwise the workmanship is stunning. He asks if Erna has noticed how fine the metal is. Erna explains that a normal person can't transform one metal into another, but she has the gift of alchemy. Lloyd tells Nick that he is no longer a simple man. He reports that Nick has acquired a unique skill. Nick asks what a unique skill is. He explains that it's a skill that only Nick can use and that it's his personality. Nick repeats the word personality. He says that although Nick was recommended to him, L. Loyal says he approached the interviewee only because he believed he had potential and that there was no other place for his talents except here. He adds that if he hadn't believed the interviewee had potential, he would have rejected him even on Augustus's recommendation. L. Loyal explains. He says he could make the man he's talking to into the best blacksmith in the country. The man starts to speak, but doesn't finish. Lloyd asks if Nick is really leaving the guild. Nick clenches his fist and says that he says that he wants to be a blacksmith and asks to stay in the guild. Lloyd asks to train him further, and the girl says that she and Nick. The woman says she won't let him win. The guy says they'll see about that. He says, "Let's follow him." The woman says she has something important to say today, and the man looks puzzled. Lloyd explains that the fate of this guild is at stake and depends on them. The leader announces that there will be a siege against the Demon Fang in 2 weeks. The man asks if they have been challenged. L. Loyal reports that this is the guild ranked 22nd at the very bottom and has about 100 members. The woman says the most important thing in a siege is the number of troops and reports that they only have 8 fighters, so the situation is hopeless. The man confirms this with the word yes. The man with disheveled dark hair says 100. The man with short blonde hair says army. Lloyd says he can't understand why elves are so afraid of humans. The man explains that humans and elves have always been enemies, and that won't change. He apologizes for acting without consulting everyone and tells them they can tell him whatever they want, adding that it will be fun. The man explains that this is the perfect occasion for his demonstration of the magic destroyer. He says yes with surprise. The woman says that she, too, can't wait to show Master Lloyd the fruits of her training, and the girl says that she also wants to and will try her best. El Loyal says that if they think he did wrong, they have the right to judge him, and that he's part of the bet. The man explains that they accepted the challenge. El Loyal says that 100 will come out against them, adding that Nero will too. The man says the guys are too optimistic. He says they can't lose at all. The boy says he won't let them lose. The man says he's glad to fight Master Lloyd again. The man explains he's glad Nero joined them. Nero warns that won't work, and he definitely won't give up Moid. El Loyal says everyone's so active and says it's a bit tense around here. The girl asks why Moida-san is his. El Loyal says, okay guys. He reports that there are 2 weeks left until the competition, and they still have a lot of work to do. Ellis explains that he and Nero are continuing their training in the volcanic dungeon. Erna explains that she and Nick are practicing using their newfound talents. Lloyd says they're making progress on the dungeon. The man says they'll report back once they've completed the task. The girl explains they haven't made much progress today because they were just looking around, and adds that she has a report. The woman tells Lloyd it's a check. He asks if it's billions. The man hands Lloyd the check and calls him Master. The girl announces that they have investors. Lloyd and the others are surprised, asking how she got the king to invest in them and express confusion that the sender is the king. The girl explains that she told the king she had no money and asked to borrow some, after which he gave her the money. The girl says that the king's brother, the former second prince, is Ellis's father, so for the king, Ellis is his niece. He says that Ellis is from the royal family. El Loyal says they could have said something earlier. The girl explains that she hopes she wasn't disrespectful and doesn't want to go back to slavery. The man says that, after all, he really isn't right for them. El Loyal explains that this time the girl used the king's help, but now she's a member of the guild, the man says. He says that becoming the #1 guild in the country was the plan. Then he says that first they will win the competition and show what they are capable of. Edgar says that the sword can't pierce it, then shouts, yeah. Edgar explains that if this is meant to be, why isn't everything going according to plan? Lloyd says he must fight. The man with the sword in his hand says, no, he won't. The man in the cloak explains they won't go any further, and if Mr. Edgar wants to turn back, that's his way. Lloyd replies, whatever they want. The 3 men express surprise. He announces that he has decided to deal with him alone. On stage, he fends off the skeleton's attack, parrying the blow with his shield and preparing for a counterattack. The guy says he's enjoying himself by watching the other guy lie helpless. The man explains that Alan was transferred to the first squad, so he's left with all this. Lloyd says that if he's destined to die, then so be it, and that it's been a good life. Then a cutscene shows a dragon skeleton attacking with a fireball. The boy let out a heavy breath as he noticed the cloaked man approaching and was surprised. The cloaked man quickly ran up and struck him with his sword. The man says he can't reach the thing and orders someone to deal with it. The man reacts with surprise. The girl says she knows and says she'll be right there. The man reacts with surprise. The woman reports a huge ball appearing in the air, and the man expresses surprise. The woman looks forward with a determined expression. The top panel depicts a dragon biting a large ball. The bottom panel depicts 2 men standing on a cliff, watching the scene unfold, with crumbling stone walls and thick ropes hanging around them. The guy asks what happened. The man notices 2 hooded men and says he can't see their faces because of the hoods and asks why they're alone. The man calls them devils. One of the hooded men thanks them for their help and introduces himself as Edgar from Incarnate. The man says he wanted to change himself and didn't want to lose to Nero or Alan, and also says he'll be killed. Lloyd explains that it seems those who are overly brave deserve to die. The girl remains silent. The guy says it's okay to be brave. The girl says that since he's here, he must become the strongest adventurer. The guy asks if you're helping the enemy. The girl explains that the higher the goal, the more intensely you burn, and that she knows this from personal experience. The guy says he can guess. The man says it's time to leave, as they have to get up early tomorrow. The girl explains that she'll report to Lloyd. Lloyd explains that the guild competition is finally tomorrow. He laughs and asks if this is a dream. The man laughs and says, ha. The man is silent, then says that he will definitely become the strongest. Lloyd asks why they are doing business with him. The man says it is a conflict of interest. He says that winning is the main thing, but you will have to show sincerity. Lloyd says they shouldn't have bought up all the potions, and explains that they shouldn't have gone to such lengths to destroy such a weak guild. The man says he'll say one thing. Lloyd says that to have power, you need to think about the little things, even if it is the weakest guild. You need to crush them to the ground so that they do not dare to rise. The girl announces that they're back. El Loyal says they need to take a shower first and adds that there's one more thing. The woman explains that the guys are probably tired after the volcanic dungeon. He says there's something they need to hear and asks to sit down and talk. Nero reveals that he's 19 years old, and his stats are Drive to Develop CSI-B, Endurance CSI-B, and his unique skill is Magic Destroyer CSI-B. Alice reveals that she. Lloyd explains what it is and how it could have grown so quickly. He tells Moid-sama that he'd like to know what she wanted to tell him and apologizes. Moid-sama reports that they've made it all the way to the 23rd floor. He's surprised that it's the 23rd floor and says it's about the dungeon. Moid-sama explains. Lloyd says that going twice as far is already beyond the human level, and at the same time says, "Oh yes, Moid-san." He reports that Edgar was there, alone for some reason. The man explains that he was pelted with fire by a flying boss and was on the verge of death. He asks if Edgar was alone. The man says he doesn't know why he was alone. The girl says, alone. Lloyd says he seems to have lost patience with his failures and went off on his own, perhaps. The man and woman report that, as expected, the incarnation of the sun is attempting to navigate the volcanic dungeon with absolutely no success. The girl says that in this state they definitely won't pass it for at least 2 months, and confirms this. He asks them to wait and asks if Nero said, "Boss." The man says yes. The man asks what happened to the two of them with the boss. The guy reports that the bosses encountered every 10 floors are very difficult. The girl says they defeated the boss with one hit of their spell, and the guy adds that he cut through a giant fireball with one hit. The guy and girl remain silent. The girl says that if it weren't for her water ball, the guy would be in the same situation as Edgar. Lloyd says that if it weren't for his magic destroyer, they would both be dead, and that it's all thanks to him. The man asks her to wait and asks if this means that they're both his. He says the boss fight is usually done by a 30-person raid, and notices that the two of them have already returned. The girl says they've also made a good showing, and the man greets them and wishes them a safe return. El Loyal says that tomorrow is the big day and they need to rest. He advises Alice and Nero to take a bath and go to bed, as they are tired. Alice says, okay. El Loyal confirms that he understands. The guy says he's tired and wishes him good night. The girl says the same, and he says he's tired too. Lloyd says they'll discuss the problems currently facing the lunar eclipse. The man asks if there are any problems. The man explains that they both know they can't buy potions right now and expresses surprise. He says that if you sell to them, you'll be considered an enemy of the incarnation of the sun, and that it looks like Kairos has spread it. The girl says that can't be true. Lloyd explains that Osana is a game of attrition, where the one who runs out of potions first loses and wants them to make potions. The girl is surprised that they'll have to do it themselves. The man says he has a favor to ask. He says there's behind-the-scenes manipulation and indirect pressure on the enemy's psyche. He also says there's no time, since the match is tomorrow. The man expresses doubt. Lloyd says that this is precisely where the incarnation of the sun is strongest, but it can't be. The man says that Kairos doesn't know. The woman says they have an amazing alchemist and blacksmith. He says he's just learning the basics of magic and doesn't know anything about healing potions yet. The man explains that they're running out of time anyway. He asks if he can. The man starts to speak, but is interrupted. El Loyal explains that the limited time is precisely why rapid growth can be expected, and Elna has the fortitude to handle this pressure. He's confident she'll succeed. Elna replies that she wants to help everyone and become the strength of this guild. El Loyal thanks Elna, and the girl begins to speak. The girl says she doesn't know how to make potions, and the man explains that everything is fine and perhaps it's better to think about another method. He says he's already made arrangements with Ogaz, who has trained someone who knows the manufacturing technology. The girl says that she thinks he will arrive soon, and then time will decide everything, and confirms this with the word yes. Lloyd tells Nick that he has a favor to ask of him. The guy says he needs to make potion containers and asks if he should actually make them rather than buy them. He explains that he understands what he means and says that it's an unrealistic task to give him right away. Lloyd says he can still do it, to which the man replies that of course he can. The woman thanks Nick, and Nick says he will definitely handle it. The scene depicts the sound of a door opening, and the legs of a girl in a skirt are visible as she enters the room. The woman reports that she was watching them on the orders of Lord Kairos, but no one could have imagined that they would decide to make potions themselves. The woman says that she needs to report to Kairos and prepare the next step. The woman is silent. The woman reports that she didn't feel the maid approaching her. The woman says her senses have become completely dulled. Lloyd tells the maid that she stumbled upon him by accident and says that she was just unlucky, so she shouldn't hold it against him. Lloyd then raises her sword to attack. A woman strikes Lloyd with a sword, and he parries the attack. The woman looks at him with tension. He asks who she is, and the woman replies that she is just a maid. The guy says the maid can repel his attack, then tells her not to make fun of him. In the next panel, two girls repel the attack, creating explosions around themselves. The girl asks if the guy is reading her movements, then announces that it's her turn. The girl raises her sword and begins screaming. Meanwhile, the girl and the guy prepare for combat, exchanging sword blows. Lloyd reports that it is a mirage. The woman says this skill can't exist. She says it's a technique used by Celiana, the great criminal. The woman explains that she will never allow anyone to interfere with their people. The guy announces that the guild tournament has finally begun. He's the host and a member of the 12th ranked guild, Black Fantasy. He says he's at everyone's service. The girl announces that it started, and the guy says he's curious about what the task will be this time. El Loyal explains that he's watching. He reports that it has begun and says that today's opponents. Lloyd announces that the test will be a castle siege, calling it Demon Fang and Lunar Eclipse. He explains that the Demon Fang is Nike, a B-rank adventurer, an outstanding strategist with a wide range of tactics, and adds that, in addition, the man says their guild has about 100 members, while Lunar Eclipse only has 2 fighters, and it will be extremely difficult for Lunar Eclipse. He suggests traditional betting, and the man with long hair says he's betting on Fang. The man reports that they say that the Lunar Eclipse couldn't even buy a potion. The boy says that if Lloyd had quietly carried out small tasks, they would have at least shown some pity for him. The man says he left the guild and took Nero from him, warning that retribution will be severe and promising to make him regret it. The woman explains that no guild. Mint bets on Lunar Eclipse. Mint laughs and says it's funny. Lloyd asks what she's up to and if she's just giving him the money. Lloyd also asks what she means by that. The woman says that she is simply for magic, and that they have declared themselves so loudly that she should at least count on them. The guy says the sorceress is weird. 3 people sitting at the table say she's weird, and one of them explains it's because she's mint. Lloyd says he'll regret it later and explains the rules for sieging the castle. He explains that the first person to capture the flag on the throne in the enemy castle wins, and that the castles are about 10 kilometers apart, with the territory consisting of forests, plains, and other terrain. He says that teams are usually divided into defense and attack, but what will Lunar Eclipse do, considering they only have 2 fighters? The man asks if they'll have time to get the potions. He explains that he can handle it without potions, and the woman says the potions are the most important thing. The woman says that Alice will most likely need the items when she runs out of magic. The woman says that although they are the same age, she is still older and suggests that they start using respectful speech. Lloyd laughs and says that in terms of time spent with him, he's been with him longer than the girl, who replies that she met Lloyd first. The girl declares that she and Lloyd are one and fate has brought them together, while Lloyd explains that the most important thing is the time spent together. The boy announces that the potions are ready and that they are the best they can be. The man and the girl say to each other, Moida-san and Moida-sama. The man asks if that's really true, and the girl replies, yes. Lake reports that the OGAS chairman has asked her to help. Lake asks why she's here and inquires if Lloyd knows how to brew potions. Lloyd replies that she knows a little as a hobby. Lloyd explains that Ms. Lake and Elna need to make 10 potions by breakfast. The girl asks if it's possible. He explains that making potions, simply put, involves having cassine leaves in water, as the peculiarity of cassine leaves is that they absorb surrounding magic. He says that they use the magic accumulated in the leaves. The woman explains that it takes a whole day to make the potion, and if 10 are needed, even with 2 people working together, it will take at least 3 days before the potion is finally complete. The man expresses surprise. Elna says she's completely useless and a burden, Lloyd calls her. He tells Elna not to be so quick to dismiss her as just a little girl and to first see her power. The girl asks for power. He tells Elna to give it her all and pour her magic into the water. Elna agrees. The woman asks how that's possible since the potion has no ingredients. What can she do? El Loyal says they'll see for themselves. The girl remains silent. El Loyal explains that they need to concentrate the magic in one spot and mix it as always. The girl replies that she understands. The woman screams that this is magic control. He advises Mrs. Lecca to leave the room if she's having trouble holding on so she can concentrate better. The woman, confused, says she can't believe she's the one doing all this. The girl says that this is Elna's ability, then she shouts Kia and directs energy at the object in front of her. Lloyd asks how the potion was made. The girl explains that the composition is indeed consistent with a potion, and that it contains a quantity of magic that far exceeds the usual amount, and it's not even comparable to simple potions. She explains that the distribution of water and magic is unbalanced, making the effect unstable, and the woman explains that Ms. Lake's spatial scanning skill can gather available information and calculate optimal solutions, and using Elna's talent, they can create a process for creating a potion that will revolutionize the world. He wants them to think through this process together. The woman explains that she always believed. The guy says it's a potion. The girl explains that they were chosen for a reason by Lloyd himself, and it's in a metal container, not a glass one. The guy says yes. The girl explains that the vessel is made to be comfortable to drink from and will not break even upon impact, and Lloyd reports that a regular container would not meet Moyd's requirements. He explains that when Nick emerged exhausted from endless experiments until the very end of time, he was in shock, so he created a metal perfectly suited for this particular potion. Nick explains that he simply lost consciousness a bit. He asks what happened to him. Nick confirms that it's a finished product. The woman reports that they both did a great job. It's a supreme potion, beyond the capabilities of ordinary alchemists, and Nick's vessel constantly activates the effect enhancement skill. Lloyd says it's a true miracle potion. The man explains that Nick has leveled up all his skills and even gained a new one magic imposition. He announces that they'll be returning to the guild and watching the broadcast. The man says it's time for them to show off their skills too. The girl says that since they've already achieved results, they need to give it their all too. He explains that things are growing right before their eyes in the guild, and Lloyd says the girl said it with such a dark aura and suggests it might be some kind of secret code. The girl replies that she doesn't know, but thinks she probably meant it. He says that's probably true. It's announced that the event will begin soon. All guilds must complete their preparations, and non-combatants must leave the arena. Lloyd apologizes for the delay and wishes her luck. The man says, yeah. The woman says, Elna and Nick did a fantastic job. He says they will definitely win. The girl looks at him. The man says, A crowd of people climbs the stairs to a throne where a man sits, with Lloyd standing next to him. Lloyd announces that the day has finally arrived, but the man remains silent. The man says that they have a huge supply of potions, but Lunar Eclipse doesn't have a single one. Lloyd says he doesn't understand why. He says that he doesn't understand why they even took part in such a competition and notes that something is wrong here. Lloyd says things are going too smoothly and reports that it's 2 against 100. He says that there are 2 against them, and the victory is obvious, and also asks what kind of fight this is and what the outcome of this match will be. A guy says he knows there's a girl there, a D-rank mage, and another guy says D-ranks are easy prey. The next guy explains that even an A-rank adventurer wouldn't be able to handle that many enemies, and another guy says they'll finally have their own A-rank, Lloyd. He says that if he tries to break this mood now, it will only cause harm. The man and he look at a group of people who are rejoicing and raising their hands. Lloyd says things are going too well, and he has his doubts, but suggests believing in the strength of their guys. The text block says, well, he speaks, asking if everyone is ready. The man, with a serious expression, says they are ready. The man, with a smirk, says everything is fine. The man at the table says they are ready to begin, and the woman, the girl, and the man next to him listen. The guy announces that the guild battle is starting. The girl says she's relying on the guy, and he tells her to leave it to him. Lloyd says it's time for him to start. He announces that he is the king. 3 men approach the throne where Lloyd sits. Lloyd says that Moyd's doll is perfect, simply perfect. The man with the glove looks at Lloyd silently. Lloyd announces that they have arrived. He says that no one will dare insult Moida-san. The man stands behind Lloyd. Lloyd mentions that Nero placed some strange doll on the throne and wonders what it's supposed to symbolize. He then makes a sound of surprise. He says this guy is a devil. The woman says her doll is better than the clay one. The girl says her Lloyd-sama asked her how to make dolls. El Loyal says it's a masterpiece and laughs at the fact that he made it himself. He says that he is a hero. Lloyd says this is a real hero. The man is standing by the stairs in front of the building. The guy on the right asks where the D-rank mage is. The guy on the left explains that D-rank is their level, and there's no point the mage even going out. Lloyd reports that the enemy has divided its forces into 3 detachments and says that he was right after all. He explains that the 3rd squad is made up of assault fighters whose task is to break through the castle's defenses, while the 2nd squad is made up of mages who carry out destruction from a distance. Lloyd reports that squads are usually divided into 30-man groups. He explains that the first squad is the Fortress Defenders. He reports that he's currently limiting himself to honing his magic destruction skills, sealing his skills, and only fighting at C-rank level. He says it looks like it's the third squad. The man reports that an A-rank adventurer is approaching them and urges them to prepare. Lloyd says that if he used his skills, he could deal with 30 opponents in a moment, but against such small opponents this is enough. He says it will be a great head start. The masked man and another man report that Nero is single-handedly taking down dozens of opponents, and it's incredible. Lloyd says he's just a monster. The girl says Nero is the strongest. He is silent. The guy says that maybe the potions weren't necessary. The girl says that it looks like he'll kill everyone himself. The woman explains that no, Nero may look like that, but Lloyd says he's actually expending a lot of energy. The left side of the scene shows a fight in which several men with weapons attack a single fighter. He says that before he could knock everyone down instantly, but now it feels like he's not used to fighting without skills, and adds that besides. Lloyd says if his prediction is correct, the real test is just beginning. He says it's about to begin. The man tells them to remember that the opponent is an A-rank adventurer. Lloyd says that this is impossible, and the other man says that the third squad itself will not take the castle. He says that's how it's supposed to be. Several men run forward, shouting and waving weapons. Lloyd reports that their goal is to wear down Nero. He says he's a real trump card. The man says that if any of them don't surrender, they will be killed. The man explains that they have no choice but to surrender. The man reports that the second squad and their combined spell to counter such magic. Lloyd says dozens of strong defenders are needed. He says that even an A-rank adventurer won't be able to withstand the impact of the combined spell. The man announces that the time has come and orders the mana to be poured. On stage, several men in white clothes stand in the forest and point their hands forward, creating a magic circle that glows and radiates energy. Lloyd says he can't afford to relax and says he needs to keep moving. He says he's tired. Lloyd says he still needs more training and starts cursing. He then expresses confusion and asks if they're taking this seriously. He says it's a huge fireball. He says it's flying straight at him and asks if he'll cut it or not. He explains that it's something he's cut before and there's nothing like it. Lloyd says this is a whole other level. He says no, it's not about whether he can cut it. He says that if he doesn't defend the castle, they will lose. He tells them to prepare to repel the attack and recover with a potion. He's surprised and asks what it is. The boy explains that the potion usually takes effect only a few minutes after taking it. The girl explains that Erna's potions are completely different and heal instantly, and that Nick's vials also carry his skill. Lloyd explains that imbuing the potion with magical power enhances its effect. He says that such potions surpass even the highest and have no equal in the world. Then he begins to say, well. Lloyd announces that it's time to show Nero the fruits of his training. He must prove himself. The men agree that they're all in this together. The man says Moida was right to believe in these two, and he too is right. He says fire and releases a fireball. Lloyd talks about who paved the way for him to this point and who accepted him for who he is. He says he wonders who made him who he is. Lloyd says that's all. The girl explains that they can't just give up, and the man says that they need to find a way out of the situation. He says that then he must exceed all their expectations and sighs. Lloyd screams as he attacks from above. The man stands on the ground, preparing to parry the blow. He says that this time he can't afford to make a mistake. Lloyd makes a sound of pain. The man says there's no way out of this place. The man explains that if you go any further, you could get trapped. The man says you need to go back and look for another way. The woman explains that the house has many rooms, and Lloyd says they can choose any. The man explains that the house has everything they need, and the woman says they'll be happy to help with any questions. Lloyd says he's grateful for the hospitality and promises not to cause any trouble. He says that if he can't win, he will die. Lloyd delivers a powerful blow with her sword, slicing through the surface and causing a massive explosion. The next shot shows the blade moving swiftly through the air. Against the backdrop of mountains, a powerful explosion occurs near the castle. He, the girl, the man, and the elf look at the screen in surprise. He says he doesn't understand what's happening. Lloyd says he doesn't understand what's going on. He and the man say they don't understand what's going on at all. The guy says it's impossible, and the girl says it actually happened. He says they won. The woman says that if he doesn't want to be noticed, it's better not to go to school. Lloyd says he can't believe this happened and explains he didn't expect this turn of events. The woman says everything went well this time, and he explains that he thinks so too. The man says they can rest easy now, and the woman says she's happy for everyone. The guy says it's incredible and amazing. The girl turns to Lloyd-sama and says it's amazing. Lloyd is silent. The girl turns to Lloyd asking him. Lloyd says, whew, then explains that when he saw the combined magical attack, he thought it was all over. He reports that Nero did well and praises him, calling him a good boy. The man says that if he fails to complete the task, he will be killed. The girl says she's a witch and that Loyal must now become her apprentice. She explains that this isn't a joke and that he must take it seriously. The guy says he cut the magic, and the man screams for him to stop. Lloyd states that magic cannot be destroyed by physical attack and at the same time asks what happened. He says to Kairos, addressing him. The man says they said they didn't have any potions, so how can they explain that? He explains that Nero has fully recovered and that this treatment really does exist. The woman says that this is impossible for ordinary potions, and the man says that even if he is asked, he will not be able to. The woman laughs and says that she now understands why Lloyd was so confident. The man says no one would have thought he was hiding such a monster. Lloyd says that. The guy says he's destroyed the magic and asks how magic can be broken. The man says it's a dream. The man asks what to do now, and the guy explains that this is their chance. Lloyd says Nero will likely be unable to fight for some time after this, and the castle is now completely defenseless. He orders them to drink potions and recast the combined magic. The man makes a whoosh sound. He reports that before Nero even regains consciousness, they'll activate the combined magic and order him to grab all the potions he has. The man explains that if he drinks the potions now, the effect won't be immediate. He says it's better then. The man notices the rain. Lloyd says it's pouring harder and asks him to wait for it to rain. He explains that there's no time to think while Nero is unconscious. This is their only chance and asks them to pay attention. Then Lloyd says that this rain. The guy says it's hard, and he says, oh, oh, oh. Lloyd says this isn't a normal rain. The men in the background cover their faces with their hands and kneel. He says he can't stand. El Loyal says that if Nero is in this state, it's bad. The man asks if that's bad. The man says the name is Jujik. He says no, and then reports that everything is going as it should. He explains that in the place where the enemy attack group is located, the girl says that it is not rain at all, and reports that she has already sent Eris there. Lloyd says it was almost too easy. He says that if you need to neutralize enemies without killing them, the girl says that nevertheless. Lloyd says it's best to learn how to create as many dense water spears as possible. The girl reports that Moid-sama said so. Lloyd says he can't hold them for long yet, but he can use them like this. The girl says she seems to be starting to understand how it works. The girl says that if Eris is already there is no need to worry. Lloyd agrees. He tells her that he told her that the enemies are hiding somewhere between the castles. The girl says that probably now. The girl reports that Lady Eris is already dealing with them. Lloyd says the transmission only shows the castle's surroundings, so no one will notice, and confirms this. He reports that everything has been calculated. The girl says that this is as expected from Lloyd-sama. El Loyal says that the match will be over soon and he'll be leaving for a while, and the girl says, well? He says he's asking where he's going. The man and woman say they're here. The girl is silent. Lloyd says we need to declare war on someone. He reveals it's Demon Fang Castle. The girl says it's time to start, then says go ahead. The voice on the right says that as Lloyd said, all we had to do was follow the plan and the enemies in the forest were quickly found. But the voice on the left says that it's somehow too easy. The girl says, it's a bit boring. The man remains silent. Lloyd tells Eris not to get distracted, just follow his plan and get into the castle, and explains that the goal is to get to the top floor. The girl says she laughs. The girl says that if she makes her way through the castle step by step, Nero will wake up and all the attention will go to him. Lloyd reports that Nero is unconscious. He explains that there are C-rank and even B-rank fighters inside the castle. Lloyd says there's a way to end it all in an instant. The girl says that it would be impolite to just finish them off without engaging in a fight. The woman says she waited. Lloyd reports that Nero just cut through a huge fireball and says that then he too will be able to. The girl says that she always thought that she had no talent, but 3 years ago, on that day, Lloyd reports that he himself showed the girl something. The girl says that she must not only meet his expectations but must exceed them, and that she can do it too if she tries. Then she says no. The woman says, hey ya. The sound is made by the blade of a sword. The girl says that under the protection of water, one must take shape and unleash streams upon the enemy. The guy with horns laughs and says that the fight will be easy, and the man with dark hair says that if they get Nero, they will become even stronger. Lloyd says it's good that they followed Nike-sama. He says that they swear allegiance to Nike-sama, and then he tells the glory of Nike-sama. Three men shout loudly, "Long live," and Lloyd asks what happened. The men demand silence. He reports that contact with the first squad has been lost. The man on the throne says that. Lloyd says he doesn't understand what's going on. Then Lloyd goes to the window and looks out. He says there's not a single scratch there. The man tells everyone to be on guard and to pass on the warning to the lower floors, as this is definitely Nero's doing. The man screams. He reacts to the scream. The guy says he didn't hear anything, and the man asks what that scream was and who screamed. The man explains he probably just imagined it, and the other man asks not to scare him like that. Lloyd says that's true. He says that although the voice was female, Lloyd says that he must have imagined it. The man says, "A." The man reports that the decisive moment has arrived. The man makes the sound, "Ah." Lloyd announces that the battle is over and asks what kind of water balloons those are. The woman explains that the water balloons were used to destroy an enemy stronghold. A man screams in horror as he shows the destruction of a building. The woman says that even she couldn't create a water ball like that, and Lloyd says that it's simply incredible. The guy says the water balloon is huge and asks who the girl is, calling her a Nero monster. The man remains silent, beads of sweat visible on his face. The guy says that she is a D rank, and the woman says that destroying a castle with one blow is already a high-level magic. Lloyd says that can't be. The man, the boy, and the girl react with surprise. The man says such magic is simply impossible, and there's definitely a catch. He says that even a D ranker wouldn't be able to cut through the magic and cast such a spell, so it's definitely a hoax or a scam. The woman says that such a level is at least S rank and confirms that the interlocutor is right. The man says that it's impossible for an unknown D rank to do this. The guy asks if the image itself is faked. El Loyal says that his leg hurts, he hit it harder than he intended, and that. He says that first impressions are very important. The man explains that this is also hiding in the clouds, although the girl says that this is the second impression. Lloyd reports that during the battle, the broadcast was conducted not only using magic, but also under the supervision of observers from the Guild Association, and before baselessly accusing someone of faking the broadcast, it would be better to ask them. The man says, "TC." He says he's going and wants to praise his participants as soon as possible. He says it directly. The man stands silently nearby. The man says, "Kairos." El Loyal reports that they have come to challenge the incarnation of the sun. The woman says she wants to clarify whether Lloyd's guild wants to take first place. He responds by asking what exactly he said. El Loyal says that's exactly what he means. The man laughs and asks if El Loyal really thinks he can defeat his guild, to which El Loyal replies, "Yes." The girl and the man remain silent. He says that as long as he's the guildmaster, they have a chance to win. The man warns Lloyd not to get cocky and addresses him by name, then adds, "By the way." The woman informs that they, the Green Mountain Peak, will also join Lloyd and his people. The woman announces that they are now allies and wants to ask Lloyd about the young sorceress who has greatly interested her. The man with the sword explains that all the money from the bets will go to them. Lloyd asks them to go easy on him. The man with the sword exclaims that the man is silent. He says that for some reason they all. The boy asks why no one does what he wants. The man tells him to do what he thinks is right. Lloyd says Kairos has changed. He says he doesn't want to take revenge for his expulsion, and just wants to reach the top with those who believe in him. Lloyd states that if anyone stands in their way, they will fight and that they will be the enemy. The man remains silent, watching Lloyd walk away carrying the door. The man says that Lloyd would be better off if he just listened to him. On the top left, it says that lunar eclipse shattered Demon's Fang and also severed its magic. On the bottom right, a man explains that they are claiming first place and also explains that there are rumors that lunar eclipse has challenged WAP. Lloyd informs Lloyd-sama that there are people lined up in front of the guild again who want to join, and asks if he was right to turn them down. El Loyal says, "Yes, thank you." The man explains that people change their minds so quickly, and El Loyal says it's great that the popularity has increased since the fight. He says that he will not take as comrades those who simply want to hide behind their wave of popularity. The woman asks Lloyd to tell her if she really joined the guild. Lloyd says that she did. The boy explains that the girl came with a sincere desire to seriously pursue potion making, and Ogaz has already approved her departure from the Adventurers Guild, so he asks her to help Elna as best she can. The girl agrees. He asks Lee to take care of E from now on. Lloyd says that who would have thought Eris would be defeated in one blow, and that the water acted as a cushion, leaving Demon Fang with only minor injuries. He also says that it all ended so quickly that it's kind of boring. The man reveals that he and Lloyd were once in one of the top guilds. Lloyd says these weaklings are out of their league. The girl says this is coming from a man who nearly died and asked for a potion. He says he doesn't mind if the girl wants to go with him. The girl says she doesn't want to go. Lloyd says he destroyed a massive spell. The man expresses bewilderment. He says he almost fell over dead. The girl says it happened because he decided to show off and jump from a high point, and he asks what's wrong with that. Lloyd says he's in shock. The woman says all the guys are great, and that's enough. He says yes. The girl asks if he gets tired of them arguing all the time and clarifies who starts it, naming Nero. Lloyd says she's just responding to the other guy's attacks, and the man asks if he's adding fuel to the fire. The man says the fight is starting again. The girl explains that's usually how it goes. The woman with glasses asks if it's always like this. The girl says that the worse the fight, the stronger the friendship, and he confirms this with his words. The man says that this is not the best way. Lloyd says that in this battle, each of them overcame their obstacles and lived up to his expectations. The girl reports that he says that with the power his older sister gave him, he will make everyone happy. The man says he didn't think this guy could get to this level and talks about the lunar eclipse and the very eye he gave him. The guy in the hood says it looks like he's going to have to take it back. The girl announces that she's going to the rank promotion exam and says goodbye to Lloyd. The woman explains that she's going to the Adventurers Guild because she has business there. Lloyd says that actually, he says that suddenly being told to go, take the exam, and become a B-class student feels like it was just an order from the market. Then he tells Nikas to go and become a B-class student. Eli asks Nick what a difficult exam is. Nick explains that it's obvious. Class B is less than 100 people in the entire country, the elite. Eli says that since Lloyd herself said she'd succeed, she'll succeed. L. Loyal says he's never heard of anyone skipping a grade. The man asks where L. Loyal gets all this confidence from. He says there's no ban on jumping. Another guy says it's worth at least trying. Lloyd says they have 3 and everything will be fine. The girl says he's gone soft and needs to get it together already. He's silent. The girl explains that it's a promotion exam, and another girl says that he says it so calmly. Isn't that strange? L. Loyal says he needs a stomach pill right now. The girl suggests making a potion instead. L. Loyal explains that's not what he meant. He says that after that duel, Ellis's strength is already known to everyone, so it would be strange to remain in D-class. The girl says that with Elna, the title will come in handy later. The man says yes. Lloyd says that there is no need to be shy and that they should show everything they are capable of, and then confirms that they will try. The girl says, yeah? The woman smiles silently. He says, yeah. Lloyd remains silent, raising his hand in a welcoming gesture. He says that with their level, promotion is almost guaranteed, but the only question is whether the examiners will be able to adequately assess it. The woman says she's already made arrangements with Mina from Green Peak and Abaddon from One Eye's workshop for this purpose. Al Loyal says they'll provide some insurance and help arrange everything. The guy asks if this is really okay, and Al Loyal clarifies what exactly. He says that the interlocutor is on the side of the incarnation of the sun, to which he confirms this. El Loyal informs them that he can't help them openly, that hasn't changed. The man explains that he too is a blacksmith and wants talented people to be recognized, so he asks to be allowed to help at least a little. El Loyal says the man has given him sound advice on more than one occasion. The man adds that, besides, he says that maybe he really could be a good mentor for Nick. Then he says that after this series of duels, he can finally catch his breath, as it's been a while since he's been alone, and explains that Nero is currently training in the dungeon. The man stands silently at the gate. Lloyd says he can look back at the house and remember where it all began. He reports that everything is still the same. He is silent, then says that this is the place where he was born. The man says that someday, even the people from the slums will live happily and laugh. He ran the guild and all this time tried to help the slums in some way, doing what he could. Lloyd says that, as he was told, he practiced cooking, and he turned out pretty good. He says it's all thanks to Moid-san. The man says he's grateful to Moid-san too. The guy says he comes like this sometimes. He says it's true and great. Lloyd reveals that he gives advice to the children of the slums, explains that he wants them to be able to live using their abilities, and reveals that he met Nero in these slums. If my sister had that kind of power, she would probably use it in the same way. Missia says she's sure Lloyd will have a kind, gentle skill and warns him to watch his step so he doesn't fall. Lloyd says he's curious about their skills and says Missia can imagine how interesting it would be. The girl says she would like something suitable for an adventurer, and he says he doesn't want him to become one. The girl says that such dangerous matters are best left to their older brother and asks Kairos if this is true. Kairos replies, "Hey, The man is outraged why Kairos is treating him like this, and the girl asks Kairos what skill he wants. Kairos says he's the head of the family and wants a strong skill to protect Moid and Lisha. The girl suggests they stop playing the hero in front of Moid, otherwise they'll start idolizing Kairos. Kairos laughs and says he knew he was respected. The boy expresses admiration. The guy says not to talk like he doesn't deserve respect. The girl says it's all fine, and if asked who she admires, she'll answer. Lloyd says he'll definitely tell his older brother, and the man answers briefly, saying, "Ah." Lloyd says that Moid is truly his pride. The woman says Moid will definitely have a good skill, and the man says, "Okay, brother." Then a caption appears about 3 orphans. The man says that even though they're not related by blood, Lloyd says they're still family. The girl smiles. He says that while Licia and Kairos were there, he was happy, and that was enough. Then he talks about Kairos' skill. The man explains that it's about growth enhancement. Lloyd says Amoid is a generalist. The hooded man explains that neither of them are exceptional, average, so to speak, but Licia's skills are simply superb. The girl says that she has 2 higher levels of fencing and identification techniques. Lloyd explains that there are many different people in this city, and he wants to get to know them all. He explains that he wants to understand why they live here and what their stories are. He tells his sister that she's a fool who doesn't understand love and asks why. The man explains that his dear sister, Loyla, simply gave him her skill. Lloyd says she doesn't understand what's going on. The man says he's offering something in exchange for his life. He says he doesn't understand why he's still alive. The hooded man makes a sound. Nor!